So this is March revenue for Gacha games. Genshin is down by like $15 million and it still went from top 1 to top 2. My guess is that Varka is not very meta and there's like no new Archon quest or main storyline progression. And phase 2 is just Skirk and Escofia rerun. So basically Genshin just had a filler patch. And I also think HSR also absorbed some of that 10 million with the Spark Sea banner and their new Planarcadia region. Zenless is alright with its new Angels of Delusion. A little slight increase in the revenue. And I also think Zenless is going to grow a bit more in the upcoming banner, which is going to be like S-Rank Belly, which is going to pull a lot of returning players back. And also Promea. Big drop for Wuthering Waves, probably because the last season was Linné and Zani rerun, and now it's two characters that aren't that popular, but I do like Chuyen a lot. For Enfield, there's a slight decline, but it's still good. I think people just had more free pulls for Yvonne and Tong Tong compared to like doing its launch with Levitine and Gilberta. And so, interestingly, people have noted that every game revenue is like slightly going down a bit, possibly due to the global economy recession, and that market may have become oversaturated day by day, especially for mainstream gacha, which is like the big four, 3 Hoyoverse and 1 Wuthering Waves, and also for the more concentrated niches like Live in Deep Space, Nikkei, Infinity Nikki, and the more Japanese-centric one like FGO, Mamusume. We're in a very already competitive market in the gacha scene. And there are still multiple new open-world gacha games, or non-open-world titles, that are coming soon, notably NTE, Never Nurse to Everness, which is releasing at the end of this month at April. And then there's also Ananta on the horizon, which I anticipate is going to come within these 2 years. And also even including the recently released 7 Deadly Sins open world game. While I am very excited for NTE and Ananta, the gacha scene might see a shake-up very soon. Applying the concept of supply and demand, I would say people might be spending less on gacha games than ever before. But they're also trying out all sorts of different games, especially new ones like Enfield, the first month of Duet Night Abyss, and also upcoming things like NTE. There was a lot of numbers, a lot of players for the launch of Arknights Enfield and Duet Night Abyss that can't be ignored. So I think that's proof there's still a sizable audience that actively plays gacha games and likes to seek out new potential game that could potentially become their new favorite game. So it's not that gacha games are in a decline in general because of player numbers losing interest or global population shrinkage or loss of interest in gacha games into other niches. You know, at the same time, there's just a lot of like new gacha games coming into the market. Just recently, there's also like Star Savior, which is like PvP turn-based. 7 Deadly Sins, which got a lot of attention for being too similar to Genshin. Maybe that's a publicity stunt. And there's just a lot of like minor niche games just popping up everywhere. With also like bigger titles with very eye-catching visuals like NTE and Ananta. And don't forget about new Hoyoverse upcoming titles like Petite Planet, Honkai Nexus Anima, Varsapura, which we all know all Hoyoverse titles are guaranteed to get attention. My point is, supply might come and outpace demand sooner than imagined. The market might face a crisis. Now this could be good for the consumer, as there are now like way more games to choose from, way more games competing for players' money, so the games now have to be a lot more attractive to the market. Old titles like Genshin might need to do more to get their audience, to retain their audience, to get their previous audience back, like maybe adding a skip button, more reruns, make the Chronicle Illness banner have a guaranteed and not more 50-50s. Or maybe just even give us some of the older characters for free. And also make the older characters a Nova Flare, which is like a toggleable buff for post-launch characters. Newer titles really need to compete with even better rates. It could be like better visuals, or come from an established IP, or more content endgame that people like. Or else they might end up like Duet Night Abyss and just fizzle out of existence. Speaking of Duet Night Abyss, I don't hate the game that much, but I do bring it up all the time because I think it's a good experiment on free gacha game characters in exchange for your time and sanity, which could be up to hours of playtime per day, plus endless grind with annoying missions like excavation, defense, capture. So Duet Night Abyss has proved the hypothesis that just free characters in exchange for time is not enough to win players over. It might seem like a fair deal, but in reality, is that gacha games cannot take away that much time from the players, or it risks being DNA'd, which is why every single new gacha games nowadays have a skip button now. We might have Wuthering Waves to thank for that. Only Genshin is still holding out without a skip button, probably because they have their core fan base is big enough to not warrant to lose the overall playtime. One more underrated factor I would say for gacha games that I don't see anyone talking about is the file size. I think people start dropping gacha games when they don't have enough storage to play all these games all together on their phone, especially for the mobile Android iOS market. And they'll start by uninstalling their least favorite game or the game with the biggest size. I think Genshin is probably one of the most uninstalled gacha game because of its storage size, and Wuthering Waves might not be too far off too. So one suggestions for these new gacha games before they release, I hope they tone it down with their file size. You can see even Honkai Star Rail and Zenless Zone Zero all have options to delete past mission resources, and we need those options in every game immediately. And also system requirements. High system requirements games like Wuthering Waves could potentially be locked out on the more underdeveloped region market share of the player base. So that is my analysis and forecast of the current state of the gacha game market. Let me know what y'all think, and I'll see y'all next time.